So today's webinar is all about talking about document requests in ShareFile. Obviously, there's a multitude of ways to do that in ShareFile today. The one we'll be mostly focusing on in this entirety of the webinar will be our document request list feature. So that is utilized in a way that you can request numerous documents at once in a very clear and concise way. So we'll talk about more what that document collection process looks like inside of ShareFile, where you can access it, and what is really the main use case for it. And then we'll talk about some key use cases of using that in application inside of your own business. So whether you are in a legal business, accounting, finance, whatever that may look like, we'll talk about how you can utilize it. Then we'll walk you through a live demonstration of the feature itself. Walk you through how to best use it, really key functionality and features inside of that document request list item. And then we'll kick it back to the slides and just talk about the impact of implementing this in your workflows. And then, of course, leave some time for live Q&A as well. So getting us started, I did want to introduce you to document request list inside of ShareFile if you're unfamiliar with it. So this is a way to request and collect a list of documents. So this would be utilized when you need to collect maybe more than one document, maybe 5 up to hundreds of documents at one time from a particular person or people of collection. And it's a digitized way of doing this and a very organized way of doing it as well. It helps reduce the time spent collecting those documents and really aim to make it easier for both yourself if you're sending it and then maybe the receiving end as a client, as an example, and making this process really simple and intuitive as you go along with it. We do realize document collection exists almost every day in your workflows, so we know how important and sometimes confusing and complex it can be. So this is the way that we found to solve that workflow in the best way possible inside of ShareFile. So this is a screenshot of what that document request list feature looks like from your point of view, but we'll walk more into what that actually looks like in a live environment and then also showcase what that looks like from the receiving end from a client user. Just to talk through a couple of use cases for this tool in general, if you've never used a tool like this before. So audit and compliance is a big use case of a document request list need. So you can collect some documentation maybe needed for audit situations. Maybe that's internal, external, financial statements, contracts, policies. All of these can be taken in a different industry way as well. These are some common use cases that we see that applies through every business. But due diligence as well, M&A, transactions, partnerships, vendor onboarding, if you're bringing on a particular business to help you facilitate a service inside of your own business, a way to do that as well. Gather legal, financial, and operational documents. Client onboarding is a huge one, probably the #1 use case for this tool, requesting all those particular documents you need beforehand to start servicing a client for a service for your business. Maybe that's financial data, operational data, legals, contracts, getting things signed that can be facilitated with the document request list. And then, of course, budget planning too. So you can gather and forecast for historical spends, department needs to get started on maybe some kind of a quarterly or yearly budget planning that you may have. There's a million other use cases that you can utilize with this document request list. So if you have any questions on if that's a good use case, I think also the demo will help showcase some of those other uses as well. But I did want to briefly talk through, before we jump into the demo, the process of what we would normally see a need for the document request list. And these are sort of the 4 key areas of where we see this. First being requesting. So you need to generate a list, and maybe you do that today manually. Maybe you email your external party or your client for a list of documents they need to send to you. It may be an Excel list you have today. Whatever that may look like, it always starts with that request first part of it. And then you would move into the collect, and that's where you gather those documents, that data from those external parties or clients to get that information from them. This is probably the most complex part of the process. This process is probably where most of the time is spent too, trying just to gather the information. There's a lot of back and forth in this process, communicating, engaging. Maybe they sent you the wrong document, or maybe you're just having a hard time tracking them down to send you anything. That's where we see this exist. And then you would move into, after you received all of the documents, the review and the analyze stage, making sure you have all of the documents you need, they're accurate, they're correct, they fit the needs to where you needed them from. And then you also are analyzing during this time too. So you're using these documents to obviously kickstart a service or facilitate information from them into another application. So you're needing to really pull some insights from those documents. And then you would also need to organize and share those documents too. So maybe you need to group the documents by a certain category or a project or a department based off of that need. How are you facilitating the organization of that? Sometimes a lot of time is also spent here in that organization stage, especially if you're getting a bunch of files back and you don't know what files they are. You have to manually open them and see, oh, this is, for example, the W-2 that I requested, it just wasn't named that. And then also sharing the list of those documents with maybe your team that needs to access them, moving or exporting them to another system. If you have particular industry software you need those documents into, or just moving them into a client folder or a project folder where you hold all those files for a retention period. So we will sort of walk you through what this looks like inside of ShareFile and how we sort of optimize this workflow in a way that it makes it easier for yourself when you're kicking off this workflow, but also the receiver of it as well. And we'll sort of introduce you to ways that we've tried to break down a lot of the core pain points in this process too, and how we're addressing them, especially through some of the client management portions of it. So you'll see an introduction to the Client Hub. If you're familiar with that, we'll show you that as well. And then all the way from start to finish of how you would facilitate that document collection process inside of the document request list tool in ShareFile.
Thank you everybody for attending today. So I just wanted to kind of showcase how to kick off that document request. Now again, these all live within our project section. And on the left-hand side, if you kind of want to follow along, I would advise that. It'll give you a great kind of memory tool, if you will, to kind of establish your own later on. Do note that projects is in our premium licensing. So if you do not see that, that's okay, that you might be on a different licensing program other than premium, but definitely follow along. So the first thing we need to do is actually establish a project first that we can start to work with our clients. Now, as you can see, I have a couple already established here, but to kick things off, you'll see the Create Project button at the top right. And the two main ones you want to focus on is either starting a project from a blank project where you're really kind of starting from scratch, or we can actually do it directly from a template. The template way is great because all throughout the project, we do have various ways to save templates for later use. So, this makes things a lot easier to kick off when you're getting to, say, the next client you're working with, and you basically want to regurgitate the same kind of project and request list that you used on the last one. As you can see here, I already have one established, and I can simply click on that. Again, to save some time, I'm just going to resort back over to one I've already established. And today we're going to focus a little bit more on the legal side and when it comes to client e-discovery. And for any of the legal folks out there that are in a practice, as you know, obviously e-discovery can be very detailed and of course require a ton of information and data from the client. So once I establish the actual project, I can always jump right into it. And to get my client in here, I can simply click on Share. I could start typing in their name. And as you can see, actually, apologize, need to refresh once real quick. But once I've actually established this, I can start typing in a name. So if I already had, say, John Smith in here as a client, I could click on their name. Or if they're a new client, I can simply create a client directly from here. Furthermore, I can come in here and choose permissions and set varying granular permissions in what this client can do within the project. This isn't really for this webinar, but we have other different webinars we've done in the past to kind of go deeper into this. So we'll definitely provide those resources along the way. So that's an easy way to kick it off, but I did want to showcase a little bit also about our Client Hub. And what our Client Hub is a centralized way to basically either create an entity like a company or a particular client and be able to link resources within ShareFile so you can easily enumerate those resources into one nice organized location. So let's take an example. I've already established several different companies here that I work with in this law firm. I have a case that I'm coming up with Northbridge. And the first thing I already did was establish clients that are part of Northbridge that I'm going to be working with. And as you can see, I've already have John Smith in here. He's added as a client. So again, this is a great way of establishing, hey, these two clients I'm working with are from Northbridge Construction Company. So this way I have an easy way to link these clients back to an entity. Now, again, you can easily add contacts from here with either pre-existing contacts that are already in ShareFile, or again, I can create a new contact to add under Northbridge. Now, I'm kind of talking all through this because this is a really great way then to establish a new project. This will help link that project directly to Northbridge, so I don't have to actually go through and establish that link elsewhere. So what I can simply do is come over the project section, and then same thing here is I can create a project. One other cool thing that it will also show you is it can view any suggested projects. And the reason it's suggesting this project is because John Smith, the contact that I added under Northbridge, already is attached to one project that I'm going to be jumping over to. So furthermore, if I did want to create a new project directly from here, same options that I had when I showcased it under the project section is I could start a project from scratch, or I can establish, again, it from a template. So if I did that here, you can see we already established a template ahead of time. I can create that project. It's doing its busy work on the back end to help establish that. But now once it's actually done, as you can see, my project is already linked to Northbridge Construction Company. So from here, just like I showed you previously in the project section, when I started one already, I can then simply add John Smith to this project because this is who I'm going to work with in terms of this discovery project that I'm working with. Now, again, I've already established this already. So I'm going to go back over to my project section, and I'm going over to my client e-discovery section project that I already have established here. So with that, let's jump right into document requests. This is what Stacy was actually talking about previously in terms of making things more seamless in terms of obtaining something from a client in a more meaningful way. For those that have been with ShareFile for a while, you might be familiar with just creating a folder and directing a client to basically just dump all the data into it, and then you sort it at that point. Really where project shines and where document request shines is having a list of items where it's all task driven for the client. So this way, as the employee and the client, I'm on task in understanding what John Smith has given me, what I am actually waiting for, and so forth. So first off, before I jump into my already established document request, I wanted to showcase how you can kick one off. So again, I've established my project and I'm ready to actually generate a list for John Smith. And as you can see, I've already added him to the project. And then from here, we have three different options you can choose from. Either I can start a blank document request. And then for this, as you can see, I just need to put a title in, but we could be very descriptive about the document request. And throughout projects, you'll actually see due dates. And due dates are very important because it helps, again, keep people on task and when items are due. They also will get reminders about the due date itself when it comes closer to time. So again, those automatic reminders do help the client stay on task. When I create the document requests, as you can see, this is from scratch. So I can either individually add items one by one, add a title and description, or I can actually import from an Excel file. This is great if you already have, say, a PVC or an established list of items that you already request from clients in an Excel form. We have a simple template that you can download that will guide you through basically how to establish that data into a form where we can ingest it into the project and create that list for you. Lastly, you also can use a template from here. And as you can see, I already have a request list template already created from the one I'm about to show you. But if I come back over here, I have the same option in terms of using a template. So as you can see, I have a couple various ways to establish a template. Maybe perhaps I didn't know I had a template. If I already created a blank document, I didn't want to go back, I could establish it just like I did in that last step. Or I can come back here and again, choose from a template list that I've already generated. Lastly, we also have AI functionality within creating that document request list. So when this occurs, I can actually give this a simple, again, name and say a due date. And a super important part is that we want to understand what industry you're working in. Again, for this example, it's legal. And what role are you in the actual legal vertical? And that is a paralegal that we have here. But as you can see, we have various different industries you could choose from. And again, various different roles within the legal side that you could choose from as well. So with that being said, I need to prompt it with something to kind of get it started, right? Maybe I'll ask, I need a baseline list of items to complete an e-discovery with my client. Now, obviously, this is very generic, right? We could continue to add details. The more detailed we are, the more detailed the request list will be. But if I simply generate a list from here, it's going to go ahead and start thinking on the back end. And once this is actually completed, as you can see, I have 10 items that it generated based off that prompt. As you can see, most of the line items are pretty generic in terms of what we're requesting. But this is, again, a good way to set a baseline of what you're looking for going into creating that list.
Yeah, and then you could also utilize this in a multitude of different ways. I know we're just showing a legal use case right now on the screen, but think about things that you don't normally have templates for. Maybe departmental projects like marketing campaigns or employee onboarding, or offboarding, bringing on new employees, needing to request those documents from them. Vendor onboarding, budget planning, gathering those documents you need to help you prepare for the new year. There's just so many different ways you could utilize this AI generation tool to help work for your workflow a lot more efficiently than building it from scratch.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. And I think that's a really good point too, because again, if you're maybe struggling on just starting a list, not knowing where to go from there, again, I feel the AI way is a great way to start getting that baseline down. The great thing about templates within projects, and especially document requests, are that I could start with this list, and perhaps I need to add more or generate a separate list for this. I can create separate templates for different needs. So that's where it really kind of comes in handy, where I can establish that template, and depending on the client and who I'm working with and for what reason, I could choose that pertaining template to establish within the project itself. So again, a very nice, easy way to kind of just get jump started in testing and working through creating a really great request list and working with your client. So with that, let's jump into the request list I already have established. Now, again, as you saw a couple steps back, I've already added John Smith into the project, but what I need to do is assign these items to John Smith. So I have already went ahead to do that, but you'll see the little share request icon on the top right. And again, just like we shared the project or added people to the project, same thing here is we could start typing that person's name. We're choosing John Smith here. And again, if they didn't exist, we could create that client from here as well. And then I have ways to assign permissions. Again, we do have these very well established in terms of being granular. So depending on what you want the client to do, you can actually view all these different permissions, or you can create a custom set rules of what you want them to do in the request list. So you have that level of interaction from the client. Perhaps you don't want them to do one thing or the other. Again, you can establish those permissions directly from here. But once that is assigned, and we're going to shift over to the client operation in a minute here, as you can see, it's assigned directly to the John Smith with all my varying different request lists. And as you can see, once it's established, I have ways to jump in, look at the name, look at the description. Again, we want to be very descriptive here as much as possible, because when this gets to the client, they want to be sure that they're uploading the right data over to the request itself. We have the due date. And again, we can also change that due date in case that gets pushed out. We're going to come back to categories. That's actually a new option that we've added in, but definitely want to hit on that today, but we'll come back to that. We also have attachments. So as you can see, John Smith actually already uploaded a couple documents here pertaining to that request itself. And then lastly, we have comments. And I wanted to show this because comments are actually super important. Instead of going back and forth via email, I can simply establish communication directly here to the client. And the client's going to get that within the app and notice that within their notification section that I left a new comment. Check this request out, and I can comment. So as you can see, I can see all the comments. I'm going to be able to see John Smith's as well. Again, I'm going to showcase, though, what it looks like from the client viewpoint. So let me jump over to the client view. So just to showcase kind of what it looks like when the notification gets to the client, they will get an email. And as you can see, he's been added to this project. And then furthermore, those emails still come in also once you assign the request list to it. So they'll be notified via email as well that they have tasks to complete. But once the client gets that, they will simply sign in. And I've already established that sign in already. But this is the client portal for the client to complete those tasks at hand. Now, just to showcase a little high level of what they all have access to is, first off, they have the established projects that you see within here. So these are their open tasks. So these are things they need to complete on the project. They also could see completed tasks, things that they've already uploaded to us or have completed. Other than just uploading, we do have other things like information requests they can complete. They still have the ability to access folders. Again, people that have been with us for a while in ShareFile, sure familiar with just creating a folder and assigning the client to it. And they also have their inbox. So if we're sending any kind of shares to John Smith here, they'll be able to see it within their inbox as well. And at the top right, you're going to see the notification icon, and you'll see there's a little red dot there that notify the client that there's something new. And there's that one client, that one comment that I had previously. What they could simply do is click on it, and it goes right to the request item that I left the comment in. And as you can see, I've established that already here. So they have a bit of understanding of anything that's pending. So not just comments, but as you can see, those due dates are kicking in. So there's other tasks that they need to complete. So that will give them an understanding that not everything is completed. They still need to run through any of their open tasks within here. And as you can see, they will show all the different due dates that they have established. So then let's jump into one of the request lists here, or one of the items, I should say. And for this item, they're looking for company policies and procedures. We have a little bit of a description here. And again, as you can see, it's assigned to myself. I'm playing as John Smith. And now I'm going to say, yes, I have a file that I need to upload to them. So now I did want to showcase one other AI part that we've recently established. Now, for instance, this is just a fake file that I've uploaded. And say, for instance, I didn't mean to actually upload this file as the client. What AI is doing here is analyzing that file in the back end. And if this has nothing to do with, say, company policies, it's obviously case has to do with something corporate. As you can see down here, we are thinking that this has nothing to do with the corresponding request list item. So this really helps the client understand, perhaps they just incorrectly drag and drop an item. This will actually give them a bit of a prompt before they even submit for review so that, again, the client can get this right the first time. Again, this is also saving time on the client side and the employee side, so they don't have to sit there and run through that data and at the end of the day say, well, we need to reject it because it was the wrong piece of information we requested from that request item. So I think that's actually very important because that is a time saver, especially when you're dealing with a lot of data from a request list. When you're going through all that data and you see something wasn't right, then again, we have to go back to the client, work with them, reject that item, and again, wait for them to upload it. All right, so that's simple enough for the client, right? They did their part. They're uploading actually what they need. So let's get back over to the employee side and see what that looks like. And I'm going to go through one of the financial records ones we have. So for this request item, this was any item that was in particular about financial records on the case itself. So just going through that same procedure John Smith went through, he uploaded a bank statement. And what I can actually do as an employee is simply bring up that PDF and review that bank statement. And one nice additional AI tool that we have to help save you time as well is that you will actually see as the employee an AI assistant button on the top right. With the AI assistant, this can actually help summarize the document. And I'm using a very small, of course, example here in terms of a financial record, but say if this was real world, this financial statement could have a ton of data that you have to analyze. So as you can see with our AI, we have some suggestions that you can prompt it directly. And for this one, I've already established a summarize this document, and it basically gave me back, of course, a kind of, say, a brief overview of what the document does or is. And the great thing also you'll see here with the summarization is that it will give you reference points. So it will kind of zero in on certain detail of the document, so then I could focus on those certain reference points in it. But say, furthermore, maybe I just needed to see the total withdrawals that John Smith had within this document. And I could simply prompt that down here and ask that question, which I already did ahead of time. And as you can see, it rightfully said that he withdrew an amount of $1,350.50. And again, there has a little reference, an example of what it all did. So again, this is also saving time when you're dealing with, say, a lot of evidence. In this case, again, we're dealing with, of course, say, a corporate matter in this case. So there's obviously probably a lot of financial data. There could be a lot of correspondent data that you're running through as a paralegal or even an attorney. I need to run through a lot of this information. If I could utilize AI to even just help establish and understand either tasks like I need to summarize the document, or if there's any action items I need to see for myself to take, that really helps me save time instead of going through pages and pages of data. All right, so once we've established that, again, we could check the status at the top. So again, remember, we have 10 items here. We're still waiting for 8 from the client. When it's ready for review, that means the actual client sends us data for us to approve. And then finally, we have what has been approved already. So again, just kind of going back to that financial record, say for instance, I got it, maybe I hit approved too fast and I already said that this is good, I can always reopen this if I wanted to. And again, I can give a description of why we're reopening this. I could give a description over to the client. And then once he gets that notification via email, they'll know, hey, maybe there is something wrong, or I didn't provide all the data pertaining to my financial record, and let me include everything else. So then you'll be able to see a well-established status of all of the items. Similar, if I did actually come in here and there was a document waiting for me to review, I can actually click reject. Same as the indicator for reopen, it will bring up a prompt and then ask them why it's being rejected. So John Smith knows via email that it was rejected for a certain purpose. Now, let's take, for instance, we have all this data we've established. Pretend, again, we have gathered all the data that we needed. Everything has been approved and collected. What are ways that we can organize that data to make it just make sense, right? That's where categories come into play. So if I'm in one of these request items, I can simply start typing in a category. And as you can see, that will establish that category on that item. And I did that throughout all the items that I had already established with. And I've, of course, established all the different categories based on the request item that I've received from John Smith. The great thing about the categories is that now I could simply filter these out. And I could say, I just need to look for any of the records that I've gathered from John Smith. So these are the records that are pertaining to that category. So now I could focus on these items because maybe those are the most important items during e-discovery that I need to focus on first. Then furthermore, I can come in here and say, I need to download all those items. Maybe perhaps I need to do something outside of ShareFile with the data. I can come by and say, download by category, and then that will establish the downloading of all those items that have to do with the records category. So again, this is one less step for you to have to kind of sit through a lot of data, focus on what you're actually looking for, download it, and hope, of course, it's what you actually are looking for. So again, just a very easy way to organize all that data as you're collecting it through a document request list. So now perhaps you're thinking, this is great, right? I have all the documents I've requested, I'm good to go. Maybe I already have a folder established in my folder section within ShareFile, and perhaps I need to move that data. So you'll actually see in projects a file section here, which containerize all that data that I've collected throughout my project and my document request lists. So as you can see now, I can establish, of course, folders here, upload data if I wanted to, but say for instance, I need to move that data out of the project into a client folder of John Smith's, because maybe I need to keep it for archiving purposes or for whatever other need. So as you can see, this actually is my document request list that we are working off of. And from here, let's go into the financial records folder. Now, again, as you can see, we established a folder for each request item. So then this way we can organize it a lot easier. And once I'm in here, there's that bank statement that I viewed before. So say, for instance, I'm good. I need to move that data into that folder. I could simply choose more and move. And as you can see, by default, it's on projects. So actually, if I had another project I've already established, I can actually move that, that file into those other projects. Or I can simply go over to my folder section here. And under my shared folders, I have that John Smith client folder that I've already established. So then I can move it there. And that will help me move that data into that folder at the end of the day. So then when I go back to my shared folders, John Smith, there's my bank statement. And then I know it's for safekeeping. It's in John Smith's client folder. So if you're used to establishing folders like this, like a client portal for John Smith, you can always move that data from the project section that you've established from the document request into the folder itself. So again, that's really kind of saving you time as well in terms of having to establish that folder and then requesting that data. All of this is done within the project, which is, as you can see, going to save you an oodle of time when you're dealing with a large amount of data that you're requesting from the client. With that being said, I'm going to pass this back over to Stacy to wrap up.
But just to quickly recap what you saw through that demo, because I know there was a lot of great functionality that JB showcased, but making sure we're helping you modernize those requests. So we started out in the Client Hub, showcasing how to request a document request list from an existing client, and making sure all of those resources are connected to that one client in a centralized spot. We showcased being able to build those lists from maybe an existing cell list you have, uploading it that way, a template that you created that you need to request a certain amount of documents from a repeated amount of times with clients, and maybe a list, the AI list generation tool. So maybe you don't have that list already and you want to have AI build that and sort of take that work off of your hands to build that list. Then we moved in the collection. So that's where you saw the client's point of view of what it looks like on their side, making it really seamless and easy with a task-oriented delivery inside of that client portal. You saw some of the notifications they would receive and the comment capabilities as well. So communicating on that task level environment helps that document request list seem a lot more capable from their point of view and be able to ask those questions easily and not have to explain what they're talking about via email. And then a lot of the document validation with the AI integration in there, making sure that the files they are uploading are the correct ones to the items that you are requesting to help reduce a lot of the errors that would come along in that reviewing stage. Then you would move into the analyze and review stage with the approval workflows. You saw being able to send back things, approve things, so the client knows that those files have been received and approved and moves on to that second stage with those files. And then also the analyzation stage with summarization. So maybe you need to pull certain information or insights out of a document, be able to do that quickly and easily, not have to search through maybe a 100-page document to get that information. And then lastly, the organization, which is also a big pain point that you noted from that poll, being able to categorize those documents, be able to filter and search those documents, and then moving those files to those folders that you have existing. Maybe it's a shared folder with your clients or just an internal file that you have on your client, or exporting those to your external tools, making sure that you have the ability to download those files securely and easily and move them into where you need. Before we move into the Q&A, I did want to showcase like the full workflow and all together and sort of why we built it and continue to iterate on it with all of your feedback, which I appreciate all of you that have contributed that feedback in here. We really want to make it intuitive and simple. We want to make it a part of your existing workflow, especially inside of ShareFile itself, especially if you're a longtime user, making it easy to work with your existing folder structure. Unified in one place for your document collaboration. We know that's important, especially if you're pulling together and working with that client inside of ShareFile already, making that an easy process for your client, not having to send them to another tool. And then, of course, strengthening your client experience along the way, too. The easier it is for them, they're going to have a good experience with your business and make that, that client satisfaction extremely high and retention as well. And I just wanted to showcase some of the customers that have already been really putting this into practice is finding this to be extremely intuitive and dummy proof, especially for their clients. So this is just one example of an accounting firm that have put this into their tax prep process and getting those files from their clients and moving into a digitized way that their clients were already working in with ShareFile, making this super easy for them.